Welcome to the latest MGAA webinar, brought to you by the MGAA and Zurich. Today's webinar is really focusing on LinkedIn and social media and making the most out of your own profile. I think it's come a bit more into the fore in recent months with less networking opportunities face-to-face. The use of LinkedIn and other social media platforms can be a really important sort of tool for your own business and yourself individually. And Keith, is it all right just to pop to the next slide? Just as ever, for those regulars who join our webinar, we've got a few housekeeping points. Everyone is automatically muted. That's just to prevent any background noise on the webinar, so the speaker can be clearly heard. Would you like to make these as engaging as possible? So to ask a question, click on the chat function on the Zoom window, and a chat bar will appear, and you can type the questions into me and I can raise them at the Q&A session at the end. For full clarity, the webinar is being recorded. This is so we can put it on our website at the end as a podcast, and more people can view the session material who couldn't make it today. And finally, feedback forms will be sent out after the session just to hear on how you found the event, how you found the content and the speaker. Keith, is it okay to pass on? So you may have heard me refer to Keith. So our speaker today is Keith Lewis, who currently works for Zurich Insurance in a social media management role. He studied PR at the University of Central Lancashire and has occupied a number of roles for Vauxhall Motors, the Society of Motor Manufacturers and Traders, and as I say, finally making his way to Zurich, where he's been for a number of years. So without further ado, I will pass over to Keith, who will start the presentation.
Ben, thank you very much indeed for that introduction that I wrote myself. And welcome to everyone who's joining us on the platform. So today, as I'm going to go through quite a lot of stuff in the next sort of half an hour or so. Please do, if you've got questions as I go through, if I say something that doesn't make sense or I slip in some jargon that even I try not to do but occasionally happens, do let me know and ask the chat, and then Ben can interrupt as we go, but more than happy to do that. And again, at the end, there'll be an opportunity for questions that you might have as we go through. There will be an opportunity in a minute or two to actually press some buttons and to engage. We've got a poll question for you so I can get an understanding of where you're coming from, so that might help me tailor some of the content that I'll bring to you in the next half an hour or so. So these are the learning objectives. For those of you who are doing this from a CPD perspective, this is what we're going to cover. I might cover some other stuff as well in all likelihood. These are the main areas. We're going to obviously focus on LinkedIn, but for some of you, you might decide, having listened to what we're going to talk about, that LinkedIn isn't the right place, and that's totally fine. But all the stuff we're going to talk about has links to other platforms. If you decide that your audience is somewhere other than LinkedIn, then that's great. You're obviously having that thought process, and you can take what we're going to talk about and lift it. Perhaps some less technical stuff, but you can lift it into other platforms as well. So we're going to look at the platform. We're going to look at governance for those of you who might run your own, be in charge of social or have responsibilities around social or content in your own organizations, how the importance of governance just needs to be considered up front. Then we're going to look at how we can make your profiles more engaging and show you I've got some hacks and some hints and tips, hopefully not, tips for you to write down an action later. I will be making these slides available to Ben to circulate and Teresa later on. Again, we'll look at content and all that kind of stuff. So that's what I'm going to talk about. I'm going to go at quite a pace. We've got there's obviously a lot we could do here. This session can be a whole day. It can be a couple of days, but we've got half an hour, so we'll ramp through. But if it does prompt any thoughts and considerations or questions as we go, then please chip in, let me know, and follow on social later on. So this is what I just like to get a scene set and a feel for where you are. I use this slide in any presentation that I give. So Ben, I'm going to ask you to hit the poll button. I've given you some options here as to what is it that's stopping you from being more social. And as we go through, I'll refer back to what you're talking about there. So those are the options that we've got there. Feel free to share your views and click on the one that you think is most reflective of your own concerns. So we'll give that 20 seconds. Oh, lots of votes coming in there. So don't know what to post. That's good. So votes ticking up. So I'll just give that another 5 seconds for the 20 of you to unfind your mute or focus on what you're doing. If you're just listening, you can have those thoughts. It looks like the majority of people have now pressed a button, so we'll close that one off there. But yeah, clearly the answers there. I think you're seeing the results there. There we go, sharing results poll. Thank you. So lots of you saying you don't have the time. That is an unfortunate, was one of the few things I can't really help with, but we'll talk about scheduling at some point as we go through. There are platforms and tools out there that will help you to do that, so you can kind of chunk that time up. But fundamentally, there's not much I can do for your diary perspective. If we can show you the value of what being on social does, then that will drive it more of a reason for you to do it. We've got some people who don't see the point. That's brilliant. Hopefully we can change your perspective of that over the next couple of minutes. Worry about compliance and legals. Very good insurance answer. So good. We'll definitely touch on that. Don't know what to post is obviously the one that crops up more often than not. So I'll give you an idea about how I look at my diary. And just look at the natural things that crop up in our lives that can aid your both personal social content and your external ones if you're running channels for your own organizations. Don't have a good enough profile, we'll certainly touch on that, and I'll show you some tips as to what's been going on there. So I don't know if I need to press a button to remove that from the screen before I move on to my next slide. So I just need to hide it. Okay, so this is what I'm going to cover in the next few minutes. So Social 2020, we're going to look at what's going on out there in the social media world. We're going to talk about permission to operate and governance. We're certainly going to look at profile and creating a better or more sustained network. We'll look at content, and we'll look at posting schedules as well, and then Q&A time at the end. So Ben's already wonderfully done this for me. The reason I put it in any case is to paint the picture of me, so you can see the different elements of my life, but you have all got a slide like this about you, and there'll be a number of different things that you're comfortable putting on there. It's your professional side of things. Whatever it is you tell people you do for a living, they're on the left. You might have some out of work hobbies. Activities. Mine's rugby. Then I've been a rugby referee for 20 odd years now, so that's my sideline from an out of office perspective, and I run various different websites and pieces of content. I run a podcast for rugby referees as well. I've got my own blog and different bits of YouTube stuff, and then I've got the family as well. And you can bring all those things to any platform that you're on if you choose to do so. So don't be afraid. Again, when it comes to your concerns about I don't know what to post about, you can post about all these things. You can choose to do that if you want to. How you do it and in what context you do it will be different depending on what platform you want to choose. But it's no surprise to anyone who follows me on any of my social channels. Keith Lewis Comms is generally the one you're going to find me on. Again, LinkedIn is the same. LinkedIn / version. I'll show you the link later on, but all those things crop up on my content feed because that is what makes me me, and you've all got a version like that. So as long as you're upfront about it and there's your profile flags these things, flags those cues that we've got, and I'll show you mine in a bit, it's perfectly okay to show you those sorts of things. Just have a think about the things that would make up your slide like that, and that will help you with some of the content that you might want to talk about. Obviously, my background coming into social is on the content side, as Ben said. My background's PR and media. I've met some of you. I can see a familiar name on the chat there, who we've come across before. So that's my background and how we come into it, which is all about messaging, reputation, protecting a brand and reputation, and all that kind of stuff. So I'm not coming at social from a marketing specifically perspective, but I can touch on that if anyone wants to later on. So what's going on in the social world? Well, a lot is going on, and I could put any number of slides here that could scare the hell out of you or not. But what we're seeing here from the latest We Are Social and Hootsuite report from this year's one, they do this every year, is that we've got about 96% of the population have been on some form of social platform, and I'll show you which ones in a minute. people have an average of 6.8 social media accounts. I mean, you've obviously all got one. If you're all on LinkedIn, you might have multiple ones and all that kind of thing. So and they're on it an hour 42 a day on average. Some will be less, some will be more. So gone are the days where I ask people if you're on social and they say no. So at some point you are on social, whether it's just LinkedIn, whether it's just Facebook, or any number of things. Just so there's plenty out there to choose from, so people are spending their time on it. So where are they? These are the most used platforms in the UK. The ones in yellow are what I would call a traditional social media platform. The ones in blue or light blue, or the lighter ones if you're colorblind, are more messaging platforms. So WhatsApp, Messenger, Skype, WeChat for those of you with Far Eastern connections. That's where people are private messaging, and from a brand perspective, that's a difficult place. Whereas where you might own a brand channel from your perspective and your employer, those are difficult places because we can't see them. We can't get into WhatsApp. We don't know what people are talking about. We don't know who's saying what, who's being nice to us, who's being a brand advocate. But actually from a rep risk perspective, we also don't know what people are being mean about. And given that you can have, I think it's 200 plus people within a WhatsApp group, it's very easy to not know that you've got a major issue on your hands until it's too late. So it's just something to be aware of there. But that's where people are. And I think that's probably will reflect your own usability, your own using of platforms. YouTube is still a number one. People don't think of it as a social platform, but the commenting, the commentary and the community that goes with a YouTube video can be enormously powerful. So don't overlook that, as well as obviously a place to put your content, because that's where people go, and it's owned, of course, by Google. So and in itself is the second biggest search engine in the world, so not one to be overlooked. What are people doing there? So this is the content thing, and hopefully this will reflect again with how you use the internet and how you use social. So they're watching videos, watching vlogs, video diary content, just people telling people about their day and engaging about the subjects that are important to them. Listening to streaming services and audio. This is why I put the next three there. Real growth in online streaming from a music perspective, but then online radio stations. We've just seen a new one launched this week with Times Radio going on online, and podcasts, which have gone from 0 to 28% in less than 5 or 6 years. So real growth in content for podcasts. If you're not a podcast listener, I really would encourage you to have a rummage around the podcast world, whatever your niche is. I mean, like I showed you my chart at the front. I run a podcast for rugby refereeing. How niche is that? So that whatever your interests, and whether it's broad picture news, whether it's politics, whether it's business, there are insurance-y type podcasts out there to listen to, and people are creating more content. So it's an opportunity for you to perhaps own a podcast, either as a company or as a group. There's an MGA podcast in there somewhere, Ben. But it's something to think about. But it's also an opportunity for you to get your colleagues, your expertise out there to get some airspace for your expertise, whether it's promotional stuff. People don't like to. If I say go on TV to people, it scares the hell out of them because they don't want to be on TV. But they're happy to talk about it. So that's where podcasting comes in. So it's a sort of easier way of promoting yourself. So some real growth in that content areas. And this is obviously a definite shift. And I need you to start thinking about social probably in a different way. And I have this conversation day in, day out with people of all levels. People say, I don't have connections. I don't use social because there's no one out there. I'll say to them, well, how many connections have you got? Or how many followers have you got? A couple of hundred. Well, that's pretty amazing. You've got a couple of hundred people that you've chosen to connect with over the course of your career or your role. You might have many more than that. You might not have as many of that, but that is a network of people that you are connected with. So therefore you have a form of social influence with them and for them. And so we need to kind of get away from the pictures that I've put there of what a social media influencers look like. Obviously Joe Wicks, the body coach, started by streaming his personal training sessions on Instagram not that long ago, but now has become the nation's PE coach, and particularly in my household, we've spent many an early morning doing PE with Joe. Safi Barker, as a YouTuber, was on last year's Strictly Come Dancing, and those 6 friends there at the bottom are TikTokers. They started timely just before lockdown. They live in a house in London all together and creating content day in, day out, all around their lives and what it's like. Between them, they've got 15 million followers. They did when they went in there, of people seeing and engaging that content. So yes, they are influencers, but so are you. And that's what we just need to think about, getting you into that space of thinking of yourself in that space, because you do have an influence, whether you believe it or not. Let me just show you a why for that, for those of you who like some detail. So this is from the Edelman Trust Barometer, which if you've heard anyone in comms or media or PR talk about this, this is the study that gets referenced quite a lot. So Edelman have produced this report for, I think, 25 years now. It's the 25th report they've published that talks about who is credible to deliver messages to you as individuals. So that's the bar chart of people on it, and things have moved up and down that bar chart over years as trust develops. But what's maintained static over the last couple of years is that those groups on the left, technical experts, academic experts, people like yourself and regular employees, are far more credible than the people on the other side of the bar chart. Journalists, NGOs, CEOs actually got better. That was way down the right-hand side not that long ago. And the great thing from your perspective is that you are all in that left-hand box. You are a regular employee of your organization. You are, I'm assuming that you're still alive since you joined the call, so therefore you are a person like yourself. And therefore, hopefully, you are also, given what we do in our day-to-day jobs, you're also an expert, whether you're an academic or a technical expert. So you tick a number of those boxes, which actually makes your value in talking and delivering expertise in social all the more important, because you've already got it. And that's what the evidence tells us. So you need to start activating that and getting into the mindset that you are important. And again, just thinking about day-to-day activity. Last night, went downstairs, the tap, the kitchen tap was leaking. So I did two things. One, I went onto Facebook and said, anyone know a local plumber? I might need one. And then I went onto YouTube to try and find the video that showed me how to fix it. Unfortunately, my limited DIY skills actually fixed the tap. I just needed to change the washer, and I could get into the washer and fix it, which was great. But by the time I'd done all that and gone back to Facebook, I had 3 or 4 recommendations from people in my network to say, these are the folks I use. Here's the lady that sorted my drain out the other day. Give them a shout and they'll come and sort you out. But I already had the recommendations. That's what people do now. So you need to be in that space, because I'm automatically going to pick one of those 3 people that my network, my friends and local people in my area chose to put in front of me, because I trust them, because they wouldn't have recommended them if I didn't trust. And that's what it's all. That's the proof point. Where do we go next? Let's just talk about governance, my least favorite topic, but one I have to talk about more often than not, because I have to remind myself that I work for an insurance company and this is important. Having social media governance, policies and training is something you have to do. It's really important, but it's not scary. If you imagine, if I paint a picture of what a policy document looks like from Zurich, our social media policy is not that at all. We've actually trimmed it down over the last couple of years. It was about 15 pages of exactly what you'd expect a Zurich Insurance internal HR policy to look like, and we stripped it down to effectively one pager, which you can see on the slide in front of you, that effectively says, don't break the law and don't be an idiot. That is what every social media policy should say, and you might extrapolate that over a number of different points. But having that in place, that employees and you and your colleagues can sign up to and agree to, and to keep you in check, is fine. And then having a way of monitoring and just evaluating what's being said out there to keep a track on it. If you want to go as far to to create training documents and tools internally that people have to go through stages to get some form of accreditation, then you can go that far as well. We've done that. We've got the resource and the global capacity to do that. But just having that one pager, and again, I'm happy to share ours with anyone who wants to look at it. If you want to lift and shift, it's all pretty sensible stuff that talks about how people should operate, the care that they should take when they're out there, talking about yourself and raising your expertise. And I'm hoping that most people out there are fairly sensible. They're going through, you're watching this because you want to do better, but you're insurance people. We are predominantly a cautious, carefully considered breed of employee, which is brilliant. I'd much rather do my job here with you and with us in our companies than I would for perhaps a fast food shop or a pub or whatever it might be. So you just don't know quite what you're going to, who's going to say what and how you can control it. So having some governance in place is important. And again, I will share that with you afterwards. Just to reassure you, so that again, this is Zurich. This is our code of conduct document. And it's really crystal clear that everyone, and this is our global document, that we encourage employees to engage in social, again, with some caveats, speak in your own voice, share your own opinion, but it can be work related. So that when I talk about permission to operate, that's what I'm talking about. Every employee at Zurich can share opinions about work. Again, stating that they're not necessarily the views of the company, and be careful they're not perceived as official statements. So we've got it in our policy. That's what I'm trying to tell. That's what I will tell anyone in the firm to look at and to get on with it. That's their official permission to operate. This comes back to why we want to do that. So yes, we've got our official channels. We've got, if you want to find the blue Z on any social, you will happily find it anywhere. I control, I'll have oversight of lots of the ones in the UK. We're obviously a global company, so we've got sites all over the world hidden behind that brilliant blue logo of ours that everyone knows and loves. It's fine, but it's not very personal. So moving people down the advocacy line, it's called employee advocacy or internal influences, whatever you might want to call it, means that it opens up your networks and your employees' networks to messages about the firm. So we're doing both sides of things, and that's what I'd encourage people to do, again, because it goes back to trust. If one of your employees there is talking about how good your company is, or about raising their profile about the expertise that they have, and they're doing it on TikTok or they're doing it on LinkedIn, then that's brilliant, because they're doing it, you're not doing it from a brand perspective. So it's really important that you consider both sides of that flow. And this is where I want to sort of start offering some advice to you as either brands or as individuals there, to be consistent about it, because what you don't want to do is confuse your audience. So wherever you find it, I just talked about our blue logo. It's there again, but whatever channel you look at, you're going to find that logo. You're going to find the imagery that shows that they've landed on the right site. They've landed on something. If you were to land on a Zurich insurance site and it didn't have the blue Z and it didn't have a banner image like that, you'd be concerned. And it's that kind of like reassurance message. Ooh, got arrows appearing on my screen. I don't know why. I don't know if you're seeing those, but I can't explain them. We have, from a personal perspective, we have, again, it's a similar look. Have a consistent approach. Wherever you find me on my channels, that you're going to find the same picture or a variation of the banner image, depending on where it is. So it shouldn't be a surprise when you find me that those are the images I want you to see. And they help to tell the story that I'm trying to put out there. So use those free spaces, and I'll show it to you again on LinkedIn in a second. Use those free spaces that the platforms give you to add to your story. So I want people to, when they look at my profile, without looking at any words, to know that I can speak and I can do media stuff, because that's my professional view I want them to do. I want them to receive, and they can do that straight away. That the images that you've probably got of yourselves can help tell that story straight away. If those images were me lounging on a beach or at a wedding or at the end of a long party night, as I found one of our execs with his clearly been at a black tie dinner with half a bow tie hanging down, that's the first impression that people get of you. So you're in control of that. So have a look and give those impressions and be consistent about it wherever they find you. Where do I go next? Right, here's a task for you to do. So the great thing about LinkedIn, and the next bit is about focusing more on LinkedIn than any other platform. So this is the one thing I've got that you can't really pick up and take to another platform. If you put that URL into Explorer or Chrome or Safari or Edge or whatever it is you do, that will bounce you into a free tool that LinkedIn have called the Social Selling Index. Forget what it's called. It's a kind of trip product that takes you into Sales Navigator, which most of you will never need to get into, so just ignore that bit. But what it does is that it shows you how LinkedIn think you're using LinkedIn, which is brilliant. It's like free advice, so why would you not do this? What it does is that it looks, when you connect up your LinkedIn profile, it will give you a baseline of where you are right now, which is why I always do this bit first before I then give you some tips as to what you do next, because everything that you might do from here on will improve your SSI score. So always run this score now. So it gives you that big number out of 100, so that's your SSI score. And when I've rolled these training sessions out around Zurich and elsewhere, I've had everything from single figures for those who literally just started it, knowing that we're going to talk about an account. If you're on there, if you once set up a profile and you've not touched it for years, you might be in the 20s. If you're using it once a week, once a month, you dip in and out, you might be somewhere close to 50, like I was in 17. If you're using it day in, day out to really drive business or really raise your profile, you're going to be up in the late 60s, 70s. So there's a whole range of where you can go. But what it does is that it looks into your profile and gives you some clues as to what you need to work on. So this was the first time I ran it. So it looks at your professional brand, which is your profile, which we'll come to, finding people, which we'll come to, engaging with insights, which is the content thing, so doing something with what LinkedIn put in front of you. And then it takes those three and amalgamates them together into a relationships figure. And obviously when I first ran this, I realized that it told me that what I wasn't doing particularly well was engaging with insights. So I spent 3 weeks or so playing with Insight, and my bar chart has leveled itself out quite nicely over the years. And I did that in a 3-week window. You can very easily game this to do. So as well as you've got that 78 number or whatever your number will be, you will also give you 2 other marks up at the top there, your industry SSI rank, and that's everybody in financial services on LinkedIn globally. So that's a big pool of people, given there are, 400 million people on LinkedIn nowadays. This number to the right of that says network SSI rank. That will be specific to you and your network. So that's telling you how you rank from a usability perspective within the people in your network. So if you've got 100 connections, this is how much, how on that scale where you are, how you're using LinkedIn. So obviously you want those 2 numbers to be as low as possible. The big number out of 100, you obviously want to be as higher. So do have a look at your SSI score at some point today before you do any of the other things that I might suggest. Again, the choice of platform is for you. Pick your audience, know where you're going to go, and play there. Play where your audience is, where you can add real value, and where you can do better business, because fundamentally that's what we're all about. We're about raising connections and doing better business for our organizations, whether that business looks like people buying policies, whether it's broking policies, whether it's stakeholder relationships, whether it's being an employees, future employees and people joining your organization. That's what we're talking about. LinkedIn, this is there. What is LinkedIn? Clearly it's about connecting the world's professionals to make everyone more productive and successful. That's what LinkedIn is all about. Yes, it started many years ago as a CV repository hub. And if that's what you think LinkedIn, you're still a little bit right. You can still put your CV there, and it might be about getting your next job. But fundamentally, it's so much more than that. It's about connecting people, sharing content, sharing insights, learning. So LinkedIn, when they merged with Microsoft, or Microsoft bought them, they also bought lynda.com, which is one of the biggest online learning platforms, which has now become LinkedIn Learning. So there's loads of education content on there, from things like how to do personal brand stuff, how to use LinkedIn. There's stuff on how to do better PowerPoints. There's all the sort of technical things that you might do. There's all sorts within LinkedIn Learning, so it's worth having a look around. So let's have a look at a profile. So somewhat vainly, I'm using my own, because obviously I've got that fair and I've got to that level, and it makes sense to use my own platform. So I can show you some bits and pieces around my profile that you want to consider. So the basic thing you've got to have is clearly your name. I'm not going to brush over that. I'm sure you can all figure that one out yourselves. But you need to have a picture, and that's for a number of different reasons. You're using this as a relationship tool. So people need to know what you look like. People do business with people. They know that obviously you know them, but as your network grows, you want people to associate your name and your face with something. If you're going to meet them for the first time and all you've got to go on is their LinkedIn profile, you need to know when I walk into Starbucks, which if you remember, that's a coffee shop where people used to go and sit with each other and perhaps communicate. If if you remember those heady days. But I need to know when I walk into Starbucks which is the person I'm there to meet. So I need to look at that picture. So that picture needs to reflect you. It needs to be professional. It doesn't need to be a pro shot. You've all got cameras on your desks now. You're probably looking at someone on some of them that's got high def picture quality. Just find one with a portrait mode and get some good lighting and have a good shot of you that's reflective of what you look like. You've then got that big space at the top, and this is an underused resource there. It's the one of me on stage there. If you don't have anything on your profile, that's just a sort of sparkly, starry type scene. That's the default setting. But again, that's another opportunity for you to sell yourself doing what you do. Now, whether is like there's me on stage, because that's why I've been doing some more LinkedIn stuff. So I want to do more talking and that sort of thing. That's what I want people to know. If you've got a picture like I showed before about me doing TV stuff, if you've got a picture of you and your team, or even stage one. I mean, we're all now working at home in our respective offices. Get a family member or whoever might be loitering around just to take a picture of you at your desk. If it helps to add to your story, you might want to tidy it looking at mine, but if you can take a good photo that adds to that perception of what people see. There are free tools out there like Canva or PicMonkey, whatever it is, you can upload images to create banners that will fit perfectly into that space. So get creative with it. If you want to put your social media handles on there as well, if you want to do that, you can add them, you can overlay them. So there's all sorts of free tools out there that you could use to occupy that space, which again is a free hit. You've then got your the bit under your name is default set to your latest job title and your employer. So if I hadn't done anything to this, it would just say social media manager at Zurich Insurance Company Limited. Obviously that social media manager can mean anything, a number of different things to any number of people depending on what they think a social media manager might do. So I've changed mine, and when you go into your profile, you'll see a pencil mark. Wherever you see a pencil mark, you can then change what's on your profile.
Okay.
So
we just had quite a topical question come in.
Yeah.
What's your view on casual profile pictures? Are they personal or just generally unprofessional?
Let's consider what LinkedIn is about. It's a professional network, so it needs to reflect that element of what you're about. So you can be professional and casual, but if you're clearly on the beach or clearly draped over somebody at a party or a wedding or something like that, that's not quite the first impression you might want to give. So I'd always head from a LinkedIn perspective down the slightly more professional looking, and even if that's a headshot, that's not you can stage it. It doesn't have to be anything too extreme. So yeah, I'd head down the more professional version of that. I hope that answered that question. Thank you for that. If you've got any others like that, just chip in. So what I was saying, that your strap line here, so I've changed mine to be chartered PR practitioner, making social media work at Zurich Insurance in the UK through employee advocacy, because that's my version of what social media manager is at Zurich. That's me in that time. And you can change this as you go. You can see there I've got a hashtag in there, and that means that anybody who's searching for that hashtag on LinkedIn will find my profile. So you can gamify it. Think of the keywords that you might want to be found for, and put them in that line. You've only got a sentence. You haven't got much to play with there, although they have just extended it slightly, so you've got a little bit more. But you also need to be aware of that sentence is what will also appear under your name when it's pulled through. So if you're looking on mobile, if you're looking at it as a comment, what you will see, and I've tested it deliberately, it says Keith Lewis, Chartered PR Practitioner, or social media manager, whatever it is that I've changed it to. I've tweaked it slightly since I did this slide. So you just need to look about when you're leaving a comment somewhere else. Look at how it appears and what those first 5 words are, because those are the crucial ones that people will see every single time you comment on something elsewhere. You can have a profile summary, which is the box underneath there, where mine starts there. I lead the UK social media drive. That's your elevator pitch. So think about you can have quite a long text in there, but you'll only be shown the first 3 sentences. So you need to think about if you've got a sort of a personal statement that you might have cribbed from a CV and you want to put in that box, think about those first sentences, because that's again what people will see before they're offered the click more or see more option, which will then give you the full story. So really make those 2 or 3 sentences the most powerful that they can be. The next bit to consider is featured content. Now, this is something that's new in the last couple of months from LinkedIn, but it lets you showcase your stuff. So again, when you look at my profile, these are the things that you see. I think there's been an extra blog post content there. And this is where I go back to my slide. So I already said that I run rugby referee stuff. That's my referee website, and you can showcase that. You can put a link in. It might be to a piece of content that you've done. It might be to your company website. For there, it's my side hustle one, as well as one of my blogs there. So you can put whatever you like in that featured content box. It could even be if you have a product to sell, it could be a link to that product. If you've got a book that you've written, if you've got a webinar coming, if you've got an event coming, which obviously how this session started, you could put the sales page, the landing page, or the sign up page, the registration page in that featured content box. So it's really worth having a think about what you might have that adds to your story that people will see, and that sits on your profile all the time. So that blog is one I wrote years, well, at the start of the year, it's about 2020. So yes, I wrote that in December, but it's still there. You'll have to go really rummage around to find that blog post on LinkedIn there, but it's pinned. It's kind of operates like a pinned post. And you can also have video content there if you've got video content to push there. Down the bottom, that's where you'll then see the activity. And that's always a useful place to just make sure it's occupied. Make sure there's something in that box that shows that you've done something, and that's a familiarity piece. And that will be whether it's you replying to somebody else's content, whether you've shared content there. So I've got in there the example, I've both commented on somebody else's, I've liked something else, or I've made a post of my of my own. So that sort of content will sit there, and that's where people will look at. So that's a good looking profile that starts to show, and it's really easy to tweak. So you can go in, if you've not been into LinkedIn profile for a while, it will guide you through the missing bits. And if you decide that you don't want to have those sections on your profile, you don't have to have them. So it's just worth going through, and don't be afraid. So there are some parts, like my secondary school is one of the things it wants you to fill in. I can't even remember what I did there. Never mind anyone else caring what I did there. So that's just one of the gaps on mine. So that's some tips to get you going. I'll come back to another one in a minute. I just want to look at company profile pages, because they are about to become more important than they ever have been. Lots of people write company pages off, but now is the time to get ahead of that, because LinkedIn are about to close down a separate platform that they've had called LinkedIn Elevate that we use at Zurich, and they're about to merge some of the content that the functionality of Elevate, which is a content sharing platform just for employees of your organization, they're going to bring that principle into your company pages. So you will be able to, as company page owners, you'll be able to put hidden content in there that only your employees will see, and they will then be able to share that content to their networks. So it's really important, and that's a subject for another day. And if anyone wants to pick up on that point, I'll happily have a separate conversation with. But it's really important to consider your brand, your company profile. Similar thing. Have the images. Make sure it looks visually appealing, because you want to drive content there. If you've got company content, this is where you should put it out. You can have your recruitment tools. That's a paid-for product that can go into there if you're recruiting. You've got a chance to showcase different parts of your organization. If you're big enough to have different elements, you can see, obviously, this is Zurich's one. This is our global page. So we've got different affiliate pages or showcase pages showcasing different things. So we have a Zurich UK showcase page, and we don't have a separate standalone Zurich UK company page. There's a slight difference in technicalities. But more and more people will be looking at these pages when LinkedIn switch that company tab on that I talked about a minute ago, and they're looking to do that through Q3 this year. So it's one to keep an eye on, particularly if you have your own page. Here is a profile hack for you. What you might see just up on the toolbar there is my LinkedIn URL. So linkedin.com/in/KeithLewisComms. When you signed up to LinkedIn, you will have been granted that. If you were up early, if you were in early, you may have got a good one already. It might just be your name. You may have tweaked it. If you've got an uncommon name, it's not. You may have been all right. But what you can do is you can change it, and this it clears things up slightly. So what you can do on your profile is that's where it will show you that button there on the top right. It will show Edit Public Profile. And when you go in there, again, on the right-hand side of that, it will give you an option to personalize the URL. Again, you can see the pencil mark there. Wherever on LinkedIn profile, your own account, you can find that pencil, you can change it. You can then change it, because what it probably will have done for you, I've given that's our head of commercial, Rob Kaczynski. You'd have thought there'd only be one of him in the world, but no, when he created his profile, they've lumbered a whole load of rubbishy letters and numbers at the end of it all. You can just, when you hit that pencil mark, you can delete those all you like. So I'm thinking about my own personal brand. I'm Keith Lewis Comms on every platform, so that's why I've put my profile there. If you want to just tweak yours to, so it's first name dot surname or underscore surname, or just have it all as your name without any dots and dashes, that's great. It's a good little tool you can do to then drop that, and it just looks much nicer if you were to then take that URL and drop it onto your email signature, or when you're sending it to somebody to connect. It shows that you're really using LinkedIn effectively, because you're just tidying up these little things that you've got. So there's a free little hack for you. Just talk about growing your audience, conscious of time. Lots of ways to do that, and people have different rules about who you connect with. What I would always encourage you to do on LinkedIn is to find the option when you find somebody to connect and add a note. So when you receive an incoming note, this is one I had in my inbox, in my LinkedIn connection, it adds something to it. It's not just that Keith Lewis wants to connect with you, yes or no, because you might not know who I am. Oh, you obviously do now, but if it's a blind request, you don't know who I am, you don't know why I'm connecting. This gives you an opportunity to add some of that. Some of it's automated. I try and make it personalized, and it's particularly if you're connecting with somebody who there isn't an obvious reason to do. So I don't do this for fellow Zurichers. I just don't. There's no point. It's obvious why I'm connecting with them. Or if it's a friend or someone like that, you might connect on LinkedIn. But if it was to one of you that we haven't met before, it might be, I might just add that note to say, saw the presentation today, really enjoyed it, something like that. Hope you don't mind me connecting. It just gives me, as the receiver of that connection, a bit of value, and it makes me want to press accept rather than ignore. And if you press ignore, they never find out, apart from if they were to check back, to realize that you haven't connected with them for whatever reason. So always, if you can find the option to personalize a request on LinkedIn, then please do that. The other thing you can do with LinkedIn is let the algorithm help you as to who to connect with if you're looking to grow. So there's a colleague of ours, Jackie. If you to look at her profile, it will also show you over on the right-hand side that people also then viewed other people there, and it gives you that option there to connect with those colleagues. So you can kind of keep going through that. If you keep clicking on people's profiles, you might find where they are and connect with them, and then send them a note to connect with. How do you find relevant content in your world? Well, let's another little trip. Another little thing you can do is to use the search buttons there at the top. So if we were to go onto LinkedIn and search for commercial insurance, it will default to return you people in commercial insurance. Of course, it's about building connections. But if you were to hit that little content button there, it'll then return, it'll filter out the people, and it'll give you content that's in that that answers that brief. So commercial insurance content, there's an obvious article that ticks those boxes there. So it's good. It's a good way of filtering content to finding stuff, particularly if you don't know them. So I don't know Mike Ray there. You can see it's a 3rd degree connection, so that's a degree away from me. So we've never come across each other, but I can still engage with his content.
Do you not like these? They're yummy, these biscuits.
They're very nice biscuits. It's lunchtime. I don't know if you can hear yourself, if you can pop yourself back on mute, or if Ben or Teresa, you can find the biscuit fiend, that would be great. But yeah, so you can do that to find content to engage in. The other thing you can do is work on hashtags. I mentioned them a little earlier on. Is that people are now starting to use hashtags more on LinkedIn. So you could again search for searching for SME insurance, and then it returns any piece of content that has that in it, so you can let it play in that way. Right, the main problem that you all had was that you didn't know what to post. So let's just touch on some of those things. So you can either use you can just search for stuff and then share it. Here's a list of 10 ideas that we come up with, that I get people to think about at Zurich, and is reflective for you. All bar one of those will be irrelevant to you if you're not Zurichers. Industry news, companies, but you've got to be a bit careful with some of that, sort of the coffee coffee corner type stuff because that's news and people are very emotive about what's going on in the world. Remember the Brexit days. I always say just don't talk about Brexit because it's going to cause a problem. Politics, religion, obviously you've got to make a judgment call whether those are good ideas or not. But let's just make that real for you. So let's just look at my diary. So this is a real snapshot back in March of the sorts of things that was my real diary for that week. And you'll all have diaries that look like this. Might be as busy, busier, but on each day here there's an idea of a piece of content that will work for you to post about, whether it's about something that you're interested in, whether it's a personal thing about, so I've ticked the purple ones there, they're more personal ones in my diary. So boys to acros, when I took my boys they go to their acro lesson, when I go and do flex work. So it allows me to talk about our flexible working, analyze how I work and I operate on a flex basis. Whether it's an event that's going on that you might have a view on. So it was budget day that Wednesday. So there may be things that crop up in the budget that allow you to then talk about or share somebody else's views on it. I mean, it might be more social things that people can talk about. So Friday the 13th, that's a thing. But you could ask a question around, does anyone care about Friday the 13th? It poses a question and people have a view on it. It'll either be yeah, I've got to be, I'm always really careful that day, or it's hogwash. But it creates that conversation that people might get involved in. And again, there's the rugby stuff. If I'm talking about rugby, then that's what I'm going to get involved in. So again, it's taking your diary and finding things that you can talk about that keeps you massively away from anywhere that might be regulated. It's not talking about product. I don't talk about insurance products because I'm not an insurance salesman. We want people to think about those things. So we want them to think about it, but it's not about selling a particular product, which is where we get into regulated territories. But there's so much you can talk about without hitting those red line areas. So there's a walk through some ideas from a content perspective. And this is from a latest report. This is the final piece before I open it for Q&A. This is about good times to post. So the darker blue piece of content there, LinkedIn say, and this is actually from a separate report, I forget, or a Sprout Social, it's there. They've just done that and they've updated it during lockdown. So this is hot off the press, if you like. And those dark blue bars have changed over the last 3 months as behavior has changed. So those dark blue posts are apparently the best times to be posting. So it's Wednesday, early doors, Thursday, Friday, and then a slot Thursday afternoon. So Wednesday morning, Thursday lunchtime seem to be the best time to do it. The advice I always say to people is just find, you'll find out. If you're posting regularly, you'll see from your metrics, you'll see from people engaging with it, you'll see from the little views that LinkedIn will tell you about whether it's a good post, whether it's a timely post, and whether it's getting more traction or not. So you just have to kind of rummage around and find out. So back to where we started. I'm hoping that we've covered off a lot of the concerns that you had about time, about content, about the relevance to it, about building network. So hopefully we've done that and we'll be able to help you tick off the learning objectives that we set out to do at the start. So I haven't been following the chat box there. Ben, something may have cropped up as we've gone through.
Yep,
but more than
absolutely.
happy to take those if things have come in or if people have got things they want to talk about.
Just want to say thank you very much, Keith. Loving the random arrows all over the slides.
Yeah, I've no idea what they are or where they've come from.
Yeah, absolutely. A few questions have come in. The first one was regarding whether LinkedIn Premium is worth it and what the benefits of paying for that rather than just the standard LinkedIn platform.
It's a great question. So I've been on LinkedIn for a long time and I've got a rating of about 78. I've never, with a 1 month option that came with something else, I've never had LinkedIn Premium. I think the benefit of LinkedIn Premium is for those of you who are actively searching for work. So if you are out of work and you are looking for it, it lets you send more targeted mails to specific people who you're not connected with. So it lets you do that. So that might be an added benefit to you. The other pocket of people who really benefit from Premium are salespeople. So if you are a salesperson, you are targeted to get so many leads, to open doors, to do all those things that salespeople do day in, day out, then that's where that can let you do, because again, it lets you send more content, it lets you do more stuff, it lets you connect with more people around that, and it kind of gives you a bounce into Sales Navigator.
But if you're using the platform just on a regular basis, you probably wouldn't worth investing in it. Just use the free version.
and it's quite expensive. Apparently, it was when I looked at it, it was about 10 quid a month. I think it's gone up quite significantly since then. So, yeah, if you are actively searching, you might want to pay for it for a month to see if it can help do that.
I think you get a free time, don't you? Or something?
You might, always have a look at the trial if you want to.
Okay. Keith, do you have any tips for recruiting through LinkedIn without using their paid options, whether searching for candidates or posting a role?
I think the best advice I would say is use as many people in your organizations to help. Everyone's got their own reach. If you go back to that reach point that I made right at the start, everyone's got their own connections, and those connections will be far more diverse than anyone who's following the company page. Just for a second, imagine the type of person that's selected to follow Zurich Insurance Company news, whether that's on following us on Twitter, whether it's perhaps being an industry bod who wants to keep an eye on what we're doing from a content. We already know from a pure diversity inclusion perspective, we know we have a problem in that respect, and that doesn't help. Your employee base at the moment has a far more diverse network, so I'd always encourage people to do that, because you just don't know who might be looking for stuff, who might know somebody who is looking for it. And again, if you have a diverse organization or a more diverse organization, then the extrapolation point behind there will be that. So that's on a using perspective. The other is more regular content. The more people that see you on their feeds organically or even paid for perspective, the more they'll understand your organization. So people think about having a company page and just selling the products that they sell. Don't forget you're to sell yourselves as a company. It's what I call the Zurich story that we're notoriously poor at talking about, I think, as an organization. I'm trying to do more of it. So I want to talk more about our employees, the charity that we've got, the diversity inclusion networks that we have, the apprenticeship programs that we've got, the grad programs that we've got, the talent programs that we've got. And if you talk more about yourself as a company in that space, what you're doing in your office locations, for example, how you're supporting your communities at the moment, that is an extra sell to your organization that people don't know about. Yep. So there's a bit of a content, a bit of community.
Yeah, a bit of indirect benefits as well there.
Sure.
A couple of quick fire questions. Keith, can you just remind people of where you can find the SSI score?
Yes, if you search for LinkedIn Social Selling Index, that will find it. The URL that I've created to make it easier is Zurin, so ZURINS.UK/SSI.
Okay.
Again, it'll be on the slides.
Yep. You also mentioned a couple of websites to help you create the banner on the top of the LinkedIn. Can you just repeat those?
Yeah, canva.com, canva.com. It's free on the whole. You can pay a premium bit if you want to, but most of the stuff I would use Canva for is free. And you can upload your own photos. You can add overlays onto the top of it. And it's a great platform. I think PicMonkey, so as in PIC and then monkey, would be another one.
Okay. Yeah, another simple question in some ways. Should you accept every invite to connect?
I love that question.
It's a great question.
If anyone wants to follow my so if you want to follow my Instagram feed, so Keith Lewis Comms on Instagram, I did a post about that last week. So it's worth having a look back through my bricks if you go back through the colours. Everyone's got rules on that. My view is people always say, they don't want to connect with recruiters and headhunters. Well, firstly, why the hell not? You don't know what they've got. If they've gone to the bother of hunting you out, you might just fit a brief that they've got. So my view, so it's your profile and it's your network. So if you're looking at somebody who can add value to your network, then connect with them. And that might be that you do know, your rules might be that you do know them, and you have met them or you're going to meet them. I look at it and think, is it going to help me and my network? Are they a fellow social media bot? Are they talking about employee advocacy? Is there an obvious connection? What I really, my own personal rules are, if they are quite clearly a salesperson, it's the moment I accept what I'll get a sales pitch for whatever is they're selling, or trying to flog me, I just will ignore it. Unless they've gone to the bother of using that optional route. They've given me, they need to give me a reason. If they're in business development, I'm sorry if that's some of you on the phone, or that sort of role, then their job is to get sales for whatever it is they're trying to develop. Now, you might not be if you don't want to be part of that process, then just ignore it.
Okay, great. Thank you, Keith. What would you say to people who are nervous about stating an opinion for fear of a negative reaction on social media? It's always a tricky place to go, isn't it?
It is. I think you just got to find your own comfort level. There is so much on LinkedIn that you will have a view on that won't get into difficulty. If we were to be having a coffee and I asked you about what it's been like during lockdown, what do you think the future of work is? You have an opinion on that. And that's not going to get you into trouble because everyone has an opinion on it. You've kind of got to think about how it's going to be received if you share that view and what the implications might be. So let's go back to Brexit because that's the obvious one. We all know that Brexit is an emotive subject that people have at some point lined themselves up on one side of or the other. And it's still an emotive subject. And if you're going to talk about it, it's going to generate a reaction. Now, if you don't want that reaction to be played out on your feed or in response to your comment, don't make it. It's a really tricky one, but people shouldn't be afraid of opening their mouths and having opinions. I would love people. I'd love to know what people's opinions are. Sometimes I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you've got to be comfortable with it. It's a really tricky one to try and get over. So I think the way to do it is to avoid that opinion piece and just comment in a positive way. And stick to the areas where you have an opinion. Look, you're all professional people, so stick to your swim lanes. This is another phrase that I use more and more. Stick to your areas of expertise where you do have an opinion. If you're going to go off piste elsewhere, then you open yourselves up to be a problem. The other thing, of course, to be aware of there is the legalities of what we're talking about. So if it's an opinion on a product, particularly for those of you operating perhaps on a life side, there are laws against having an opinion and leading people down a path to a particular product, particularly in that business. There might be other rules in sectors that you're involved in. The people watching might have things they're not allowed to talk about or share opinions on. So you will all know what your legal red lines are as an employee of your own organisation and doing what you do. So of course, be aware of. Don't go near those, but doesn't mean you shouldn't do everything else. Yeah,
brilliant. All right, thank you very much, Keith. That's all the questions that we've had in. Were there any final thoughts?
I've got lots of thoughts about lots of things. So if people want to connect with me elsewhere, that my contact details are there. And if anyone wants to start a conversation around this, if it's prompted something, if you've got questions about how we've approached it at Zurich, I'm more than happy to talk you through that and give you some advice if you would like to.
Brilliant. All right. Well, thank you very much, Keith. That was an excellent session. It was very broad, but also really drilled down into some of the content ideas and how you get the most out of your profile. So I just want to say thank you so much for spending an hour with us and presenting to our membership. And thank you for the people who logged in today. I hope you have a good rest of the day, and we'll end the webinar there. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.